Okay, we're going to be changing a blade on a paper cutter. Most paper cutters change almost the same way, so we use our tools. Some use Allen wrenches, some use socket wrenches. This one happens to use a socket wrench. We grab the two sizes that this one happens to have, which most of them only have one. First thing we want to do, as the blade comes down in this direction, is take this one here off first. Take it out completely. And then we lower the blade. On the power paper cutters, you can lower the blade by hitting the buttons until it hits the bottom, and then hit the power button and it stays down. Then continue loosening up the rest of the screws. And like I said, this one has one odd one in it. And just take them out. Now the screws are removed. Return the blade to the top position. Same thing on power, just turn the power back on and it rises up on its own. Since we're not using handles, we're using screws for manipulating the holding of the blade. Just screw two screws in. Be careful not to touch the sharp edge, even when they're dull, they're sharp. Take the nuts loose on the sheath. Leave them on there, you can't put the blade back on. Now, holding the screws, lift it over to the side, clear the end, and out it comes. And we want to put it in the appropriate hole so it's safe. Nobody's going to hurt themselves when handling the sheath. Screws back in. Put the nuts on them. Take the screws off the blade. Transfer them to the blade that's going on in its place. Since the one that we're putting on is larger, up and down, because they sharpen the bottom and makes them shorter, we have to increase the gap on the leveling screws. Now on this one, I'm also having to remove screws. I'll sit right there temporarily. Turn the tag around, so next time when it gets put back on, it'll be in the proper position. Done with the small one. So the next step, on the back of this paper cutter, most of the cutters will have them on the top so you can reach them. Just back this off. Don't have to back it all the way up because every one of them is a different height. If you go too far, then you have to screw them back down so they meet the blade. Just back these off. Should be sufficient. Just lift this up by the screws again. So there's enough threads into it so it doesn't fall off. These are very, very, very sharp. You'll take your shoes off and your toes at the same time if you drop it.
So it's 14 1/4.
It's approximate location of where it will be when the blade holder comes down to realign with it. Drop it down. On the power cutters, you're going to have to play with it a little bit to get it to line up. Now in here, since I'm not putting any pressure on it, I can slide it sideways a little bit. The bottom screws are still in play on this one because there's a gap on the bottom. If there's no gap on the bottom, then you want to line it up to the top screws.
I mean, it's not a big deal if it trim it down. If it wasn't short, that'd be a problem.
Put the screws back in.
You'd have to trim it on both sides.
There's no accuracy.
Well, let's just wait.
We'll wait a minute. He's changing the machine anyway.
I'll get him the plate. It's the white paper, black ink.
Okay. What number did you try to call in on, by the way? The 213 number
Yeah.
or 805?
No,
I
213.
think it's my number.
Call that number. If you have it.
I think it's just my number.
You know what? Just make it snug. Doesn't have to be tight. And then raise the blade, put in the last screw. Make it snug. I'll get a couple of pieces of bond. You only need one piece. Tear it in half. And you do this before flipping the stick, because the last thing you want to do is bury the knife into the stick. Back off the back gauge so you get enough room just in case you gotta do a couple of test cuts. Now I'm going to turn the screws down until they touch the blade. Okay, that one's touching. That one is already touching, which means it might have to back off. We'll find out momentarily. Yes, it'll have to back off. We'll grab the wrench for it here. This particular one is 7/16. Most of the others are about 3/8 in size screw, square screw on the top, leveling. Back down, it'll push the blade back up. Inside. Now I'll turn it down by hand until it touches. Okay, now we're ready to level the blade. About right, this one's now too high, so I'll just turn it in one part of a turn. Go down and see if it cuts through, which it does. Now there may be a deep cut in the stick, and if so, it won't cut properly.
Found another one. Hey, make sure you get that on film, Derek.
Now I'll change the stick. What you don't want to do is put your fingers underneath it. Some paper cutters have holes in the bottom. You stick a screwdriver up through those holes and it pushes out the stick. So it keeps your fingers from getting
Chopped off,
cut, nicked.
minced, sliced, diced, julienne.
Well, that one would be a little difficult. We're cutting fine here, cutting fine there. Now we can finish tightening up the screws. Work back down since that one's now tight. Don't get crazy tight, just get it nice and super snug. At some point when you're cutting a large stack, you may have to readjust the leveling screw in the back so it makes it through the last one, and if you go crazy tight, you'll never make it. Okay. Blade's been changed, adjusted, and ready for use.